The biting November wind whipped through the streets of Chicago, but it was nothing compared to the icy silence between Nia Vance and her husband. Outside the Cook County family court, the gray sky threatened snow, casting a somber pall over the city just 3 days before Thanksgiving. It was the kind of morning that seeped into your bones, making you long for a fireplace and family. But for Nia, it marked the end of 30 years of warmth. She stood near the entrance, her beige wool coat buttoned to her chin, a burgundy scarf, hand-knitted and slightly frayed at the edges, wrapped snugly around her neck. She looked like any other grandmother waiting for a bus, unassuming and quiet, blending perfectly into the weary rhythm of the city. A sleek, black limousine pulled up to the curb, splashing slush onto the sidewalk. The back door opened, and Marcus Vance stepped out. Even in the gloom, he shone. His Italian suit was impeccable, tailored to hide the softness of age, and his camel hair coat cost more than most people's cars. He didn't look at the sky, he looked at his platinum watch, grimacing as his polished loafers touched the wet pavement. Following him was Sasha, a woman 30 years his junior, wrapped in white fox fur that seemed blindingly bright against the dirty concrete. She adjusted her oversized sunglasses, though there was no sun to block, and wrinkled her nose at the smell of exhaust and damp wool. They looked like royalty visiting a slum, their disdain radiating in waves that were colder than the wind. Inside the security checkpoint, the air was thick with the smell of wet coats and floor wax. The line was moving slowly. When it was Marcus's turn, he didn't wait for the prompt. He began stripping off his accessories with aggressive impatience, tossing his heavy gold belt and phone into the plastic bin with a clatter. "Hurry up, old man," he snapped at the security guard, a heavy-set black man with gray stubble and tired eyes. "I have a flight to Aspen at noon. I don't have time for this bureaucracy." The guard, whose name tag read Joe, simply nodded, his jaw tightening as he endured the disrespect that wealth often felt entitled to dispense. Nia stepped up next. She didn't rush. She placed her handbag gently on the belt and looked the guard in the eye. "Good morning, Joe," she said, her voice a soft hum amidst the clatter. "How is your wife recovering from her surgery?" Joe blinking, surprised to be seen, truly seen, by anyone in this building. His face softened into a genuine smile. "She's doing better, Mrs. Vance. Thank you for asking." Nia reached into her bag and pulled out a small, foil-wrapped package. "I baked some pumpkin spice cookies for the shelter. I saved a big one for you." "Happy Thanksgiving, Joe." Marcus, who had been waiting by the metal detector, let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a cruel sound. "Still acting like a peasant, Nia?" he sneered, loud enough for the people behind them to hear. Sasha giggled, checking her nails. "Handing out crumbs to the help? That's why you don't fit in my world anymore. You think small. You are small." He shook his head, looking at her with a mix of pity and disgust, as if her kindness was a stain on his reputation. Nia didn't flinch. She simply picked up her bag, thanking Joe one last time, and walked over to where her husband stood preening in his expensive coat. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't frown. She stood tall, her dignity acting as a shield that his insults couldn't penetrate. Nia adjusted her scarf, meeting his gaze with eyes that held no anger, only a deep, terrifying pity. "Your world is smaller than you think, Marcus." Room 402 smelled of old wood polish and Sasha's overpowering designer perfume, a scent that screamed new money and lingered heavy in the stagnant air. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a stark contrast to the quiet dignity of the old courthouse, but the noise coming from the defendant's side of the table was far more distracting. Sasha was busy curating her life for an audience that wasn't there. She held her phone up, finding the perfect angle where the light hit her diamond earrings, snapping a selfie with the empty judge's bench in the background. "Finally getting rid of the baggage," she muttered as she typed a caption, giggling as she showed the screen to Marcus. "Look, babe. #new beginnings, #power couple." Marcus leaned back in his chair, treating the legal proceeding with the casual indifference of a man ordering lunch. He was checking stock prices on his tablet, occasionally muttering about bull markets and acquisitions, loud enough to ensure everyone knew he was a man of importance. "Boss Tech is up another 3 points, he announced to the room at large, ignoring his own lawyer, Mr. Sterling, who was trying to organize a stack of files. Marcus turned to Nia. who sat opposite him, her hands resting calmly on the table. "You should buy some shares with your alimony, Nia. It might be the only way you'll ever see real money again." Nia didn't respond to the jab. Beside her, Ms. Davis, her attorney, slid a thick, bound document across the polished mahogany table. It landed with a heavy thud that seemed to vibrate through the wood. "The settlement agreement," Ms. Davis said simply. "As discussed." Mr. Sterling, looking harried and sweating slightly despite the chill in the room, reached for the document. "Thank you. We will need some time to review the clauses regarding the real estate division and the—" "We don't have time," Marcus cut him off, his voice booming. He checked his platinum watch again, an exaggerated gesture of annoyance. "I have a plane to catch, Sterling. I'm not spending the next 2 hours watching you read legalese." He looked at Nia with a smirk. "She just wants the house and enough cash to keep her comfortable. It's fine. I'm worth billions. Let her have the crumbs." He wanted this over. He wanted to walk out of those doors with Sasha on his arm, victorious and unburdened. Mr. Sterling tried to protest, his hand hovering over the cover page. "Mr. Voss, really, protocol dictates that we scrutinize the asset allocation." There could be, but Marcus was already reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a heavy gold fountain pen, a gift Nia had given him 10 years ago when the company went public. He didn't even look at her. He flipped past the first 10 pages, then 20, ignoring the dense paragraphs of text. "I make decisions, Sterling. That's why I'm the CEO and you're the billing hour guy," Marcus declared, glancing at Sasha to ensure she was watching his display of dominance. He flipped to the final signature page, flattened it with his palm, and signed his name with a flourish. The ink glistened wet and dark. "Done," he announced, capping the pen with a satisfying click. "You're a free woman, Nia. Try not to spend it all on yarn." The scratch of the pen on paper echoed like a gavel strike. Nia watched the ink dry, her hands folded peacefully, knowing the trap had just snapped shut. "All rise." The bailiff's voice boomed, cutting through Marcus's arrogant laughter like a knife. The sudden command silenced the room, wiping the smirk off Sasha's face as Judge Holloway entered from his chambers. He was a man who commanded respect without demanding it. His robe flowed around him like a shroud of authority, and his silver-rimmed glasses reflected the harsh overhead lights. He took his seat on the high bench, arranging his files with deliberate slowness. His gaze swept the room, resting momentarily on Sasha, who was popping gum with open-mouthed indifference. Holloway stared until the popping stopped, his eyes narrowing slightly before he turned his attention to the documents placed before him. "In the matter of Voss versus Voss," Judge Holloway intoned, his voice deep and resonant, like gravel rolling in a drum, "I see a settlement agreement has been reached and signed." He picked up the heavy document Marcus had so carelessly authorized moments ago. As he turned the pages, the room was silent save for the rustle of paper. Then he paused, his hands stilled on the signature page. He looked up, his gaze shifting to Nia. He studied her for a long moment, noticing the burgundy scarf wrapped around her neck. Recognition dawned in his eyes, not of a billionaire's wife, but of the woman who anonymously knitted hundreds of those exact scarves for the Southside Foster Center every winter. He remembered the handwritten notes of encouragement tucked into each one. He looked back at the paper, then at Marcus, and a frown etched itself deep into his forehead. "Mr. Voss," Holloway said, lowering the document but keeping a finger pressed firmly on Clause 17. "You are a captain of industry, a man known for his attention to detail in business. I assume you have personally reviewed every line of this agreement." Marcus waved a hand dismissively, not bothering to stand fully straight. Yes, Your Honor. It's a standard division of assets. My lawyers drafted it, her lawyers tweaked it. We're all adults here. Can we wrap this up? I have a schedule to keep." He tapped his fingers on the table, the rhythm of a man who believed his time was more valuable than the law itself. Holloway slowly removed his glasses, placing them on the bench with a soft clack. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Standard division," he repeated, the words tasting dry in his mouth. He looked at Marcus with an intensity that made Mr. Sterling shrink into his collar. "Mr. Voss, there is nothing standard about transferring 80% of your voting stock and your entire real estate portfolio to your ex-wife. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus's smile froze, cracking like thin ice under heavy boots. "Excuse me, what did you say? 80%? Marcus's voice cracked, a desperate sound that shattered the dignified air of the courtroom. He stood up so abruptly that his heavy oak chair screeched backward, toppling over with a deafening crash. The confident billionaire who had strutted in moments ago was gone. In his place stood a man whose reality was dissolving before his eyes. "That's impossible," he shouted, his face flushing a deep, alarming shade of plum. "I didn't agree to that. She tricked me. This whole thing is a setup." He pointed a trembling finger across the table at Nia, but she remained perfectly still, her hands clasped as if she were in church, not a war zone. Judge Holloway didn't flinch at the outburst. He banged his gavel once, sharp and final. "Order," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Mr. Voss, sit down or I will have you removed." He leaned over the bench, his expression hardening into stone. "You just mocked this court for being slow. You treated these proceedings like a nuisance. Now you want us to pause because you were too busy showing off for your companion to read a binding legal contract." Sasha's mouth fell open, her gum dropping onto the floor unnoticed. She scrambled to grab Marcus's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the fabric of his expensive suit, wrinkling the silk. "Marcus, what is he talking about?" Her voice rose to a shrill, panic-stricken pitch. "Fix this. You said I was getting the Aspen Villa. You said we were keeping the jet. I am not living in a condo, Marcus." Her concern was naked and ugly. There was no love in her eyes, only a terrifying calculation of lost assets. "It's a mistake." Marcus ignored her, lunging toward the bench, reaching for the papers as if physically tearing them would undo the law. "I demand a do-over." "My lawyer didn't." "Your lawyer tried to stop you." Holloway cut him off, glancing at Mr. Sterling, who had buried his face in his hands, defeated. The bailiff moved with surprising speed, stepping between Marcus and the judge, his hand resting warningly on his holster. Holloway stared Marcus down, his gaze unforgiving. "There are no do-overs in contract law, sir. The signature is authenticated. The transfer is effective immediately. You are now a minority shareholder in your own company. The flight to Aspen is cancelled, Mr. Voss, as I believe the jet now belongs to the plaintiff." The fight drained out of Marcus. His legs gave way, and he slumped back into his chair, the silence returning, heavier and colder than before. He looked at Nia with pure hatred, his eyes burning with the sting of betrayal he felt, unable to see it was his own reflection. "You ruined me," he hissed. Nia turned to him, her voice soft but firm. "I didn't ruin you, Marcus. Your ego did." Desperation has a distinct smell. In this room, it smelled like fading cologne and cold sweat. Marcus sat hunched over the table, his hands gripping the edge until his knuckles turned ashen. He leaned in close to Mr. Sterling, whispering furiously, though in the quiet courtroom, it sounded like a hiss. "Sue her. File for fraud. Intentional deception. I don't care what it costs, Sterling. Drag this out until she bleeds dry. I will not let her walk away with my empire." He was a drowning man trying to pull everyone else down with him, unable to accept that the water was already over his head. Nia watched him, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. She nodded imperceptibly to Ms. Davis, who reached into her briefcase and produced a second, much thinner black folder. Nia slid it across the table herself. It glided over the polished wood and came to a stop right under Marcus's nose. "Before you fight, Marcus," Nia said, her voice dropping to a whisper that only they could hear, "look at page 4. Look at the tax records for the Voss Foundation account, the one you and Sasha used to fund your trips to Paris and Milan." Marcus froze. His eyes darted to the folder. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside weren't divorce papers. They were bank transfers, flight logs, and jewelry receipts paid for with nonprofit funds. It was proof of embezzlement. Federal crime. Prison time. His face drained of all color, turning a sickly gray. You have this?" he choked out. "The IRS audit is scheduled for Monday, Marcus. I've known about it for weeks," Nia explained gently, as if explaining to a child why they couldn't play with matches. "If you still owned those assets, you would be liable. You would go to federal prison for 10 years. She leaned in closer, her eyes searching for the man she once loved. I took the company to protect the employees. And I took the liquid assets to pay back every cent you stole before the audit hits. I'm not robbing you, Marcus. I'm rescuing you. I stripped you of your wealth so you wouldn't have to trade your Italian suits for an orange jumpsuit. The realization hit the table with the force of a physical blow. She hadn't outsmarted him for greed. She had destroyed his ego to save his life. Sasha, who had been reading over Marcus's shoulder, saw the words federal investigation and prison on the document. The color returned to her cheeks, but it was the flush of self-preservation. She stood up abruptly, grabbing her purse. Prison, she shrieked, no longer whispering. You're broke and you're a liability? Marcus looked up at her, reaching out a hand. Sasha, wait, we can. I don't do waiting, and I certainly don't do prison visits, she sneered, stepping back from his touch as if he were contagious. I'm not dating a broke felon. She turned on her heel, her white fur coat swinging as she marched up the aisle, the click-clack of her heels sounding like gunshots in the silence. The heavy mahogany door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing with finality. Marcus was left alone at the table, stripped of his money, his mistress, and his pride, sitting across from the wife he had betrayed, the only person in the world who had actually tried to save him. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the clean, crisp silence of a storm that had finally passed, leaving the air washed new. Judge Holloway closed the thick file with a deliberate, gentle thud. He removed his glasses and looked down at Nia, a faint smile softening his stern features. Ms. Vance, he said, his voice warm with a respect he rarely accorded to the people in his courtroom. Your patience is a virtue this city rarely sees. The court wishes you well. He didn't look at Marcus, who was staring at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. With a final nod, one elder acknowledging the wisdom of another, Holloway stood and exited to his chambers. Nia stood up, smoothing the front of her beige coat. She didn't look triumphant. She didn't look vindictive. She picked up her bag and walked around the table to where Marcus sat. He was trembling slightly, a broken man in a bespoke suit that suddenly looked too big for him. Nia paused, then placed a hand gently on his shoulder. He flinched, expecting a final insult, but none came. Find yourself again, Marcus, she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years of memories. The man I loved is still in there somewhere, buried under all that money. You have a second chance now. Don't waste it chasing things that shine. She squeezed his shoulder once, then turned and walked away, leaving him weeping silently into the empty echo of the room. Out in the lobby, the bustle of the courthouse had resumed, indifferent to the drama that had just unfolded. Nia spotted Joe, the security guard, sitting on a bench for his break, unwrapping the cookies she had given him. She walked over, reaching into her purse. She pulled out an envelope she had prepared days ago, not from the settlement money, but from her own savings. Joe, she called out softly. He looked up, wiping crumbs from his chin. Nia pressed the envelope into his calloused hand. Get that extra-large turkey for the grandkids this year. And maybe that bike the little one wanted. Joe looked at the thickness of the envelope, his eyes widening, misting over. Mrs. Vance. I can't. God bless you, ma'am. You're an angel. No, Joe, she smiled, wrapping her hand-knitted scarf tighter around her neck against the draft from the revolving doors. I'm just a woman who knows what truly matters. She pushed through the heavy glass doors. The wind was still howling, swirling snow around the pillars of the courthouse. But for the first time in months, the cold didn't bite. It felt bracing, invigorating. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the sharp, clean air of freedom. She didn't have a husband, and she didn't have a flashy title, but she had her dignity, her company, and her peace. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, the winter sun broke through the gray clouds, bathing Chicago in gold. It was going to be a good Thanksgiving. Sometimes, the quietest actions echo the loudest, and the strongest armor isn't made of gold, but of dignity. Nia taught us that true power isn't found in arrogance or wealth, but in the grace to save even those who betrayed us. Like a warm scarf on a biting winter day, unconditional kindness has a way of shielding the soul from life's harshest storms. So take a moment to look past the surface. Because when we stop judging others by what they have, we finally see them for who they are.